Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Season 1, Episode 7 of Euphoria. It's been a while since I've gone on and done any of these reviews for the show, simply because I felt like I needed a break away from it. Because really, I was just like, you know what, I just feel like I'm going into the same pattern over and over every time I review this. And it feels like I'm a broken record. And I just wanted to break away from that. I just wanted time to marinate away from the show and do other things and to eventually come back to it. Simply because I'm like, you know what, like this, I don't feel like I'm ever going to get anything out of the show. So I didn't know if I was really going to go back into the show to start watching it again. Because immediately once I also saw, like, the picture of Cassie on the next episode, I'm like, oh my god, I just don't want to I don't want to see this person's backstory. I don't give a like... So I needed some time to just marinate and just be like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I don't know if I really want to review it. But I don't know, like, something today just kind of convinced me, like, when comments happen, and I'm just like, you know what, maybe I should just go on and watch this. And it isn't all about views, ladies and gentlemen. I know a lot of people are like, oh, if the thing goes extremely well... like, there's a lot of times where there's stuff where it's just like, but this show freaking sucks, and why should I justify my eyeballs being placed upon it? Even if this were to have gotten me a bajillion views upon one crack of the whip of one episode, there's some times where if it's a horrible show, that's why I stopped covering Batwoman after season 1, and... because it was just like, well, hey, the views are nice, but freaking not that nice. The show is just like, you just want to just hate the show, and it's, yeah, it is what it is with that. So, thank you for anybody who watches these reviews. Thank you for anybody that goes on and listen to anything that I have to say, because I'm going to go out of my way to talk about this episode. I'm not going to apologize for anything that I'm to also say in previous episodes either. If something is to offend anybody, if something is to just, like, irk somebody, I don't care. Like, because this show deserves all the crap that it deserves. With the exclusion of this episode actually being something that I can put in a positive direction. Because I actually felt like I was like, okay, like, there's something here. Not quite sure exactly what it was, but there's something here. Because, good grief, does every freaking, like, mostly men, but does it seem like there always has to be this thing of a perv thing in this show? Could we just get beyond that for one freaking episode, and it doesn't have to be completely about that kind of thing? Man, if you just edited little tiny parts about the show, this would feel like a normal show. For once. Like, hey, we don't have to focus so much on these little, these peeve things. Come on, show. Get your mind out of the gutter for one episode to just give me something different here. For the love of gravy boat, Captain. So... with that said, teeing it up, what is this episode about? So, this episode was to be focused on Cassie. I was like, you know what? Surprisingly, I actually enjoyed the Cassie parts in this episode, even though there was stuff that I was like, you know what, I'm kind of concerned about Cassie. And I would have thought that this would be a thing that would never have been flapped out of my mouth, but kind of worried about Cassie, kind of interested to see where her story goes, even though within the very next episode I'm sure she's going to become this evil, maniacal villain character that I'm immediately just going to be like, Cassie, that girl. Because I feel like there's always to be that turnaround when you're just easily and quickly have interest in a character, all of a sudden in the very next episode you're going to be like, yeah, I loathe and hate this person. Why does she or he exist? Hence why I want to see the thorough, like, backstory of Lexi, because I like her, if anybody, the most out of the show. And even in this episode, I'm like, yeah, freaking Lexi, give Cassie what for in this episode. To where I freaking laughed when Lexi was going on and talking to Cassie about, like, let's go into it. Like, Lexi was going on and saying that Cassie gets told all the time that she's good looking or beautiful and whatever, and Lexi's just sick of it. I laughed at that part of that episode. This episode, um, I laughed. It was funny. But yeah, so we also have both Jules and Rue who are having depression. You know what? I immediately want to say that a lot of people are probably in that boat. I know there's a lot of struggles. There's some times where I just feel like I just want to just lay in bed all day and not do a single freaking thing. Um, because depression gets us all. And so, like, I guess we can go on and find a character in this episode to just kind of feel like, yeah, they're just going to just be in bed for like a day or a week or whatever, or even a year, cause I'll be there for you. Do. Friends. Speaking of friends, we have Rue and we have Jules who can eventually turn to a number of people, even in one episode, to just try to take a crappy day or some boo-hoos and turn them into rainbows, so to speak, or turn them into happy days. And so we go on and have these characters who are to try to like get themselves out of this funk, and we have kind of Rue on the slippery slope and kind of concerned about Jules, which I never thought I would also be flapping this thing out of my mouth to really say that I'm concerned about Jules. Um, Hopefully everything goes okay with this character, because it seems like she's going on a downward spiral. After all of a sudden, we're probably going to have Jules sometime soon, who's going to be going into some meeting. Because we're probably going to have her dad probably just like, hey, like, you need to go and, like, you need some help. You need, like, maybe he's going to send her to the hospital again. Oh my god. Can't wait for that to not happen. Um, so going into this, let's go into that and crack that double five. Let's just go into it. Let's just go into spoilers. There were some fun things about this episode. There was some actually fun things that I could have like, oh, this episode can grab my attention? Wow, that's great. Why can't we do more of that throughout the whole entire season? Is the only reason why this episode is more interesting than anything else that I've seen prior is simply because the season is ending, so it feels like it has to like, hey guys, we actually have to do a thing. Oh, we do? Great. Let's actually put something interesting out so that way we can garner us getting another season worth of this. Okay, great. All right. They're probably just going to get renewed anyways, because which Spider-Man movie was coming out when? That's a horrible thing to say, but it's just, it makes so much sense to just say that. My folks just today had went into the theater and they had seen No Way Home. They asked me if I wanted to go. I'm like, like I've already seen that movie, and like I don't know. Like I could have gone and seen it for a second time, but I was like, I had a late night, so I was like, not really. So they saw it and they liked it, so I was like, cool. So I enjoyed it also. When I saw it on a bootleg via the freaking way of which I inconveniently watched it, because it wasn't convenient for me to watch it, but I watched it anyways and I reviewed it. Maybe not the best review, but it's out there and exists anyways. So with that said, let's crack into that double five, because it's otherwise that time yet again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time I get to spoil this episode. So let me know how you feel about Euphoria, because this is a weird and wild episode. Realize that any time that you're probably to say any kind of profane like things, that more than likely I will not be able to see your comment, so you should probably just censor yourself. So I can go on and easily be able to read this comment and not have to just go on and just find it in the hold for reviews section, because there's a lot of times where there's some stuff that I would just not bother to go in and see because I don't have that kind of time, or I don't want to go on and look to see if there's a held in review comment for whatever reason, because it's boring, it's annoying, and it's like, oh, what is this comment that I'm gonna probably just delete? But anyways, so for this episode, we of course are to go on and have Cassie, who is to have like a family focus thing. So we go on, we have Cassie, who's to be at this, I'm assuming, birthday party, and she looks really innocent and young and like bejeweled. Like all these jewels are like all over her face and forehead and whatever, and not quite sure what that all was to mean, that she was trying to be like some kind of princess or some kind of something, but like, you know what, like, good on her. If we haven't had anybody just freaking like glitter to death within the show, like, man, do we just have like just face full of glitter. I swear to God, if somebody's not blind by the end of like 8 seasons of this show, because I'm sure it's going to go on to that length, people are going to be blind, and like we're going to just have it to where everybody is just going to like, we're going to have to forcibly have a show that is to be another kind of Jason Momoa C kind of show, where all the cast members are all blind, but like they're still having parties, they're still dancing it out, and still doing this musical thing. You know what? I am so tempted every single time they have a party scene to just skip some time out of this episode. Because immediately I'm like, I don't want to freaking listen to just music in this show. Freaking give me line of dialogue instead of just showing people dance. This is garbage. Because I was just getting so irked about that from like, wait a minute, so we have yet another episode where like I'm just watching people dance and there's no dialogue? Are you kidding me? I was so like upset about that. Because I'm like, we've had 2 episodes now, but like the dialogue doesn't even matter anyways, so like it's just, I can't get anything that I want. Because we either get dialogue that I'm like, could we get the English translation of this part of this dialogue? There's so much dialogue that just gets thrown away. And here's the thing. Whenever we have a backstory of a person, shouldn't that person that has the backstory be doing their own narration instead of Rue just narrating, Zendaya narrating all of these backstories? Why is it that we have to have Rue narrating these characters? That just feels wrong. So they don't like, what is this, like the whole story, like it only is through Rue's perspective? Seems kind of garbage. But anyways, so we go on, we have Cassie. Cassie is to go on and, of course, have her getting older, and I guess when she's getting older, she starts to hit that thing called puberty. And puberty, of course, is to have her fill out a little bit more, let's just say. And so we go on and have these family members, because I'm not guaranteed or confirming if these are all family members, And I kind of hope some of them aren't actually family members, because that's freaking weird. At these get togethers, and so we have, at one point, one guy is going and hugging Cassie, like, ooh, you've really filled out, as, like, we have some haha going on with the Batukus. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, hey, get your hands off that woman. Freaking, are you kidding me? Like, it seems like Cassie just has to be weirded out by those freaking people. So, we go on and we have Cassie, who, like, the older she gets, and, so we go on and we have all these get togethers where it seems that at some point we have her parents that are, going and having some problems eventually. Suze and Gus, is it? What goofy names? But at least it seems more uh, like easy to pronounce than the man I just watched House of Gucci. Good grief! If I could get a easy to have pronounced name during any part of that movie, I would have just thanked the gods for that just one easy name, because it was rough. It was some rough justice. So we go on and we figure that they don't actually tell us what happened between Cassie's parents, but it just seems that, of course, it's to be left, because of course it is, to the dad be going on and doing something wrong for this couple. But, like, so, but we have some rando girl in this cafeteria saying that supposedly Suze had an affair with somebody, and that's why Gus was to break it off. And so Gus would go on and try to be Cassie and Lexi's dad, but then every once in a while he just stopped, like, he would more and more just stop coming to pick up these girls, and we all of a sudden would go on and find out that I guess Gus had turned into probably some drug addict, because he's going on and, like, robbing these people blind and, like, stealing all of their and hawking it or pawning it to probably get more drugs, which that's what I would naturally have to assume, unless I would find out another else story. So I'm like, so we just don't have a really, we have it to where that spirals, and because I guess since Cassie's to see that she is to have a bad dad, that that transitions Cassie to just find a bunch of bad guys that are to go on and use her and are to only be interested in seeing her without clothes, or to basically make a video with her, which I'm like, no. That's where I would draw the line, to just be like, no. Especially when it feels like this, when this girl had probably, like, gone on and probably done this numerous times. If she's done this numerous times, then that's on her. I can see if it was like a whole one time and this just thing got out like cat. Like, I can see where it's like, well, like, just silly people that go on and just take one thing and whatever. But, like, we have Cassie who has gone and done this, like, multiple times and multiple videos. And then she's, like, she's crying about when it goes viral or gets out or whatever. It's like, wait a minute, you've done this numerous times now. But I get it. Like, romance and love and, like, and you don't think that somebody's gonna, like, F you over, so to speak. But I don't know. It's just it is what it is with this story. But hey, like I feel bad for Cassie. She just hasn't found the right person. Not quite sure if that's 100% Chris. Kind of with the way the story kind of plays out, because we have it to where it seems that still the male character is to just be uh the kind of character who is to be Chris in this story. That's like, hey, like even though this is your decision to have a baby or not have a baby, I'm gonna go on and say it's like, hey, like this baby is really gonna like complicate my life. Then you should have put a rubber on it, you son of a bear. Like, good God, put a rubber on that day. Put that rubber on that day. You put a rubber on the day, no problems. Doesn't matter if the girl's allergic to whatever kind of, like, come up with another way to put a rubber on that day. You know what I'm saying? Figure out, like, oh, if she has an allergy to something, then you come up with the allergy rubber, if you know what I mean. The unallergy rubber. Ribbed for probably her pleasure, not yours. So yeah, so let's back it up a little bit. So we go on and we have Cassie, who I guess is taking up ice skating, because we show that in this episode. I'm like, good. So it seems like she's like, it looks like she's really good at ice skating. Like, good for her. That's not like a condescending, like, no, like it seems like this. She looks really good at what she's doing, so that's really cool. Like we have a character that has some kind of like hobby or talent or something, and maybe she'll go on and do something with that, which is what I kind of hope. So that way, this won't feel like a waste. But with the way the show kind of goes, I feel like it's going to be a waste anyways. So, but going on into this episode, we have it to where Cassie is to find out that she's pregnant. And so she goes to all of her friends, and it seems that Cassie is to want to confess to Chris that she had gone on and been with Daniel. I'm like, wow, Cassie. I'm very impressed by this girl. Like, this girl just has like a come to turn around moment where she's like, you know what? Like, should I tell Chris about this? And so she goes with all of her friends, and they're just like, what does it matter? We have it to where Kat is just like going on and like just saying, yeah, like, what does it matter? Like, you can just go and have your cake and eat it too, and so on and so forth. And to all of a sudden we just go on and we have Maddie, who's kind of ticked at Kat by her being who she is now. And so Kat goes off and cries. I'm like, oh. But then again, I'm like, oh, but you technically kind of deserve it. Like, I'm sorry, like, we have her in the other episode just saying, like, I'm gonna bankrupt these guys. And I'm just like, I just have no, like, no real true upside feelings for Kat if I was to have at some point, because I wanted to see this person succeed at some point, but then I realized, yeah, not so much anymore. I could care less about this character. And we have her go on and spend some time with some client, 30 minutes of time in this episode. And we have this character that has to have some voice scrambler and blackened screen and this and that. And so eventually, and probably I'm sure another episode, we'll figure out who that is. Let's put bids on it, unless you've seen this episode, because I'm sure people probably have. I would assess, if it's not Ethan, I would assuming it has to probably be Rick. or somebody that we're going to find out like, oh, maybe this is the nice person, and then we'll find out they're actually evil. Because I'm assuming that has to be that kind of thing. We're going to find out like, oh yeah, like this is the douchebaggery person. Oh yeah, of course it's going to be a douchebaggery person. Oh yeah. Because heaven forbid we have nice people in the show that at some point, because they're just going to turn around and be this evil, maniacal person that's going to be laughing in the background as they're weirdly petting a cat they don't have. So we go on into the show. Let's back. So Cassie is wanting to possibly confess to Chris, and so Cassie is asking Lexi about this, like, what should she do? If she has something that she has to tell somebody, what should she do? And it's like, well, what are your options? Like, go on and you should probably tell him. And so the weird thing is Cassie doesn't even tell Chris about her being with Daniel. She just tells Chris that she's pregnant. That's all that she tells him. So when Cassie drops the bomb on Chris, all that Chris gives us about is that it's like, well, hey, like, this isn't the right time for this because I have school and I have I have a lot of stuff going on right now. But you didn't have time to slap a rubber on? You didn't have time for that. He has so much things going on that he couldn't have slapped on a rubber. He has so many, like, hey, like, I'm going to college right now, then slap that rubber on. Problem solved. Really, I think Cassie might have just wanted to go on and be pregnant, maybe. Because really, she does say that. She's like, you know what? I feel like this is like something that I want to do with my life. And Chris is just like, well, you can just put a pin in that because I don't want to be a dad right now. Like, Chris goes on and is to not even have, like, Cassie decide whether she wants to be a mother or not. It's her body. She can do whatever she wants with this child. She can go and deliver this child and then send it on to an orphanage and have it be adopted. Or she could go on and choose to be a surrogate mother for some, like, there's that. Like, they have a whole movie called Juno where, like, we could have a girl deliver a child for some other family. That could be a thing. Like, if Cassie wants to go on and deliver this child, she can do that. She has all the rights. It's her body. So I just, like, Chris just going on and just like, well, I'm not going to blah, 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 blah. Dude, then you should have slapped on the rubber. You're a moron. It's your fault. So we have Chris that is to, like, ask Cassie just like, well, are you okay? The first question that should have been asked is like, well, do you want to have this child? Is that, if that is a yes, then we could have Chris go and say it's like, well, like, it's your body and it's your choice, but I feel like there might be a problem with me being able to afford this kind of thing because where I'm at financially or whatever. Like, talk it out reasonably, just not like, oh, babies are scary. Babies are scary. Really? Are they boogeyman that's going to come out of the shadow and whatever? Like, yeah, babies are expensive. I'll admit that. That, like, there's a reason that some people are just like, yeah, I don't know if I could ever have a child because I don't know if I could ever afford a child. And there's certain people that they want to, like, if they're going to have a kid, they want to have, like, they want to have their kid have like the best experience and whatever. Like they don't want them to just be like scratching and clawing through life, so to speak. So like if someone is going to have a parent, I hope they want to put the best foot forward for their child and just like, hey, like, yeah, I want to financially like support my child and do the best by them if you're going to actually have a child at some point in the future. So now that I've gotten off of my high horse again, because heaven forbid, so we also have something fun going on in this episode without the whole like tear jerking sadness that Cassie is to go on to her mother and is to like say like, Ma, I think I need some help, and then like they go on and they're talking and they're hugging it out, and so like a really nice moment. Just hopefully Cassie is to be okay by the end of this episode with whatever she's to decide. So we go on and we have let's go and talk about the Rue stuff. So Rue, of course, is to go on her Morgan Freeman rants for this episode, which I thought was like, I thought it was funny, the whole Rue thing when she was like popping in and being this detective trying to solve this case, like she's like uh Columbo or frickin' any other detective that would actually be much more of 2022 right now. Uh, what would be a detective? I don't. All I know would be probably these old references that people are like. Who is that? Who dare? CSI? Is that show still an existing thing? Blue Bloods? Blue Bloods. I've Blue Bloods. Ugh. Whatever. Anyway, I love that show. I love Blue. I've seen it way too often. It gets to the point where immediately once the episode starts, I'm like, oh yeah, this is this episode, and this episode happens, and blah 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 blah. Kind of like Big Bang Theory, where I know every single episode by heart. I wonder why. Anyways, I don't like watching them, but they're always on. Oh my god. Anyways, pushing on. They're on in the background all the time, and it's just like, oh my god, if I could just not hear for one day a Big Bang Theory or a Blue Bloods thing going on in the background, anything but that, be just great. Anyways, so we go on, and so we of course have it to where Rue is MacGyvering her way. Well, like MacGyver isn't really a detective, but anyways, we of course have Rue who's figuring things out. She's Jacques Cousteau, I guess, if that's people know who even that is. That is, anyways. So Pink Panthering it up, so to speak. So we go on and we have Rue, who of course is to put the puzzle pieces together of why Jules is to be very depressed and be in her bed. And we, of course, have her dad who's checking up on her because he's a good dad, maybe, for the most point. And because we don't know this guy's backstory. We'll figure it out and we'll find out that he's an a-hole, I'm sure. So that's what always happens in the show. We'll find out through backstories that people are just legitimately a-holes. Because it's just, heaven forbid you find like one good person in the show. Because they'll turn around and they'll be Darth Vader and they'll be stab with the lightsaber in your foot. Anyways, so we go on, we have Jules who's depressed, and so Rue has to figure out why. And so it seems that Jules is to think that Tyler and Jules were to have this this forbidden connection because Tyler is 22 and Jules is 17. So it's like, oh, inappropriate love. So we go on and have Jules who is having a conspiracy about Tyler and Jules, and that all of a sudden is to also connect to Nate. And so we go on and we of course have Rue who's kind of figuring out all these clues, and how, of course, like this all happened with Tyler the way it did. So we now have it to where Rue is talking to Fezco and is to tell Fezco to tell Nate to back away from Rue and Jules and to maybe flash a piece. Not a piece of chocolate, like a gun, like a weapon. Whip one out and just kind of flash a gun. And Fezco was like, I don't do that bullshit. And like Rue is just like Fezco, like, hey, just be like, just like try to intimidate him. This is Nate here, the most villainous character so far in the show is to be this thing called Nate. Just this weird, masterfully crafting man that is to just get you. He's the boogeyman. He'll figure out a way to just get you. He's freaking Booger Man. Just watch out, because he'll get you. But no, Fezco, just go on and just figure out how your life can just get flushed down the toilet, either literally or figuratively here, so to speak. All because of Nate. And all because of you being tied to Rue that is telling you to do something that, like, you could just go on and just not do that thing, and your life would be perfection. So, not only that is, like, Fezco, like, I'm not quite sure who he's exactly wiping down, so to speak, in this episode. Maybe his grandmama? His mother? Who is he wiping down in this episode? Is my question. Because I didn't check through this. So, we go and we have Fezco, who is dealing with that drug dealer that has have the face tattoo and is telling him to up his game, because here's a number of other drugs that he's going to have to go and flush down a toilet later on because cops are being called. So, because we have Fezco who talks to Nate and tells him, it's like, well, hey, man, like, better stay away from Rue or Jules or I'll kill you. And Nate is just like, you're a drug dealer, right? You're the scum of the earth, technically. Like, you peddle your drugs and whatever, and, like, you're telling me to not, like, boogeyman anybody? You out of all people? Okay, alright. Like, we'll see who tangos now into jail. Because Nate is to go on and talk to Cal, and Cal is to go on and talk to Nate and be like, yeah, I don't know how that you got out of the thing that you did, but, like, I don't know, I'll probably figure it out at some point, but I think that you did something to just get yourself out of that predicament. Alright, so we go on and have Nate call the Hawaii Five-0, and it's to go on and arrest Fezco. What if we were to go on and have that be that Nate, in the next episode, didn't actually call the cops on Fezco, but instead called the cops on his dad? Man, would that be interesting. And maybe we would have all of a sudden that Fezco's, like, drug dealer was to call the cops on Fezco, so that way this guy could go to jail, and we would have this guy who's like, hey man, like, since you took all those drugs, you're gonna, like, pay me money, and once you get out of jail, you're gonna have to go on and pay me, like, back pay for not, like, pay, like, because I'm wondering if that's how that's gonna be. Whether it's gonna be something where Fezco is gonna need, like, protection in prison. He's going to need to do back pay for him not having this drug money. So I'm assuming Fezco is just going to be dead in prison. It's only a matter of time. I would not like to have that happen to this person, because it seems like they're a drug dealer with a heart of gold. But we'll figure that out when we get into other episodes. So we of course have Kat and Daniel that are going and having their night together. And so we of course have Kat, who was to mention to Daniel that they had both, when they were young, dated for a number of months, like 5 months. And Daniel's like, I don't even remember that at all. Because Daniel is now completely turned into a 100% heartless a-hole, because why wouldn't he? And so basically after Daniel is to have gone with Kat, I guess this was a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of, well, not even thank you ma'am, it was wham bam I'm gonna insult you ma'am and just get freaking out of here. And so Kat, I guess, is to possibly be hurt from what Daniel had told her. And so Kat is going on and having her own private sesh with black screened guy. So we'll get into that. So speaking of relationships, we of course have Rue's mom, who seems to be moving on. Leslie is moving on to go and find a guy named Rick, who, from once we barely see him, is to seemingly be a nice guy. To where all of a sudden Rue is to want to figure out some way to have this nice guy just not work out. To where Rue immediately is just to tear into this guy and is to say, yeah, like, my mom could do better, and I hate the fact that you're sitting at what would have been my dad's chair. So get the out of here, basically, because you are to be just not a person that Rue is going to like. So good on Rick for just being on this show for maybe one episode, because he probably won't be on others. So, so what else do I need to go on and talk about here? Because Fezco is going to be flushing all of his drugs from into this toilet, and Jules, Rue. So Rue, I guess, is having problems with her bladder, because I guess since she had gone on and taken a number of drugs, and now it's considering she's clean, it seems that she would not have a problem with peeing. And Rue is all of a sudden kind of holding off her bladder consistently from peeing because she's depressed and doesn't want to leave her bed. So Rue is seemingly having a problem with her bladder, so much so that her mother is going and trying to take care of Rue. And so we have Jules, who's to go off to see her friend called TC, I believe is who this character is. And TC is to kind of ask Jules, it's like, hey, like, what are you kind of doing? What are you kind of doing with your life to want you to come with me and kind of just be a whisked away from wherever you're at with your life? So Jules is kind of like remembering that she had gone on and turned Tyler in, and that's all that like is still just to be weighing on her, because she's probably tortured by the fact, or feeling guilty, the fact that she had been forced into having to turn somebody in. So she is thrusted upon the arms of another woman in this episode, as of course Jules is to go on with TC and start to get high and start to party with these girls. And so it seems that Jules is to be thinking about Rue while she's partying, or possibly thinking about Nate while she's partying. But she's with this girl named Anna, who is to go on and to basically romance this girl whether she wants to or not, whether she consents to it or not, because this girl, Jules, is to mention that she is effing high. So, kind of concerned about what's going to happen with Jules, but I don't think it really matters because as long as she's not dead, as long as she doesn't get OD'd high or whatever. But I'm assuming at some point we're just going to have Jules, who's probably going to have to go to some meeting at some point, but we'll figure that out when it gets there. Or maybe her dad is going to just send her off to some hospital at some point, like we almost had her once before do that. So we have Jules that is having this fantasy about Rue or Nate, and Nate is coming as this glittered man that is to be at this party, and Jules is like, I didn't talk to you, and Nate is like, well, like I followed you and and this and that, and she's like having this fantasy, this dream or whatever, and so I'm like, Jules really needs to pick who she's gonna be with, and I think it's easy to just say that it's going to be Rue, but I don't know. Like Jules just likes to just like maybe be a homewrecker or something. Like meaning that like I think Jules wants to just break up Nate and Maddie because she just wants to be that kind of person. But when we have Jules going and talking to Anna about her life and how like she like goes on and just rattles off like things that she's talking about to this girl, I'm like, what is she even talking about? She really is high because whatever she's saying just doesn't make sense to me. So we what is left to talk about here? So we have it to where Rue is talking to her mother about probably being medicated again. And so, like, hopefully Rue can take that medication and take it the right way. Because we have Rue who's looking at those medications and they were weirdly talking to her when Rue was with that old girl and she was so or with that old woman. And she was so tempted to just take any number of those drugs, but she walks away from them and is to count every single step that she is to make to her way home. So, with that said, I think that technically covers everything. Yeah, Cassie's uncle was the guy who was to say, "Oh yeah, you really filled out." What a goof! What a geef! Not that actor, just the role that had to just be involved in that. I'm like, freaking people are weird in this show. Can we not? Can we just for one episode just turn off the weird for once and just have a regular show for freaking once? Good God. Um. But yeah, so with this episode, I think I'm gonna get out of here. I've talked for far too long, anyways. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about Euphoria, if it's a weird and wild and wacky and crazy kids of a show. Because hopefully we'll go on and not have one episode where people are dancing and music's in the background. Um, we seem to have it to where Anna is to possibly think that Jules and her are going to be boyfriend and, well, really just girlfriend and girlfriend at this point. And we'll see how that all plays out. Because we have Jules and Anna who are just, I guess, going at it to the point of we have, like, Jules who's, like, disrobed quite a bit in this episode. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to just get out of here. Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.